In late 2022, I made a video called "This Gravity Falls book was quietly discontinued." In it, I discussed how Gravity Falls' official coloring book, "Don't Color This Book, It's Cursed," had supposedly been discontinued due to no longer being listed for sale on Amazon, Barnes & Noble, Chapters Indigo, and other booksellers, as well as on Disney Books' own website. Sure enough, it had been, and alongside the first GF book, Happy Summerween, became the first official GF books to be axed. However, in September 2024, as quietly as it had been discontinued, it had now come back. Found by some friends of mine, which I also made a video about, the coloring book and Happy Summerween were both quietly relisted with a new publishing date set to release on May 6th, 2025. Well, it's now May 2025, and sure enough, they've arrived. Now, this video is not a review per se of the coloring book. It's been out since 2017, and as it's a republishing of the original book, and neither Emi Cicerega, who authored it, or Stephanie Ramirez, who illustrated it, have said that they worked on anything new for it, we can be assured that there's nothing new or major to review in this book that hasn't already been seen by fans for nearly 8 years. What I want to do, however, is to go over some of the subtle differences that have occurred in this book, given, despite being a re-release, there are some rather interesting changes that have occurred in this book that have honestly left me both confused and somewhat disappointed. Through that, what I want to let you know is, in turn, if this re-release is worth buying, given there are some issues I have with it. So with that said, let's have a look. Now, for clarity, so you know which one is which, the book on the left is my original 2017 copy of the coloring book that I got when it first came out in July of that year. On the right then, is the 2025 edition that is just released at the time of this video. At first, it looks like there's not really any difference on the cover, and if you bought this book not owning the original one, you'd probably be forgiven for thinking that. However, right away, you might be able to notice that the pink "Don't Color This Book" text on the top is a lot duller looking. It's lacking that sparkle that the 2017 copy had. In fact, if you feel the older book, you can actually feel the sparkly texture of it. It feels exactly like what it's supposed to mimic. One of those sparkle glue-like things you might have used in arts and crafts as a kid. Comparably, the new book lacks that sparkle and feel. It's just the letters put on the cover without any of the texture. It honestly feels kinda lacking, and like they just skipped out on adding that this time around to probably save a bit of money. I mean, I'm sure no one is gonna go crazy over this nothing burger, but still, considering how much this book costs, which we'll get to in a sec, this already should be an indicator of some of the corners cut with this republish. Something else I noticed is that it seems the images on the cover have been moved up slightly. For example, on the bottom left of the book, there's this Bill Cipher-like pattern you can see, and in the new book, there's this bit of Bill's tie that is more visible than in the older copy. It's the same on the top left too, with Seuss being moved up a bit. I'm honestly not sure why this happened, but I guess that's now a thing too. Again, it's not really a big deal, but hey, this video is all about subtle differences, so let's just mention it anyways. The rest of the cover is more or less the same, though the new copy's cover honestly feels a bit duller looking comparably. It's probably not something that the camera may be able to pick up, but if you compare the two of them, you'll know what I mean. On the other hand, the spine of the books are the same with the same name, GF, and Disney logos visible. The back though is where you'll start to see some of the differences. Again, the background images are raised up a bit, and the book looks a bit duller on the back too. The main difference though is in the bottom text. The old book is copyright 2017, and the new one is of course 2025. Similarly, the barcodes and ISBN numbers are different, but what strikes out very quickly is that the font is different. We'll discuss this a bit later, but the font on this book has had a major change which I'm really conflicted about. But even that is small potatoes compared to the biggest and most painful, for me at least, difference. The Canadian price. Despite remaining $12.99 in US dollars, it's now gone from being $13.99 in Canadian dollars back in 2017 to $17.99! Now, I could go on and on about that price increase, but quite frankly, Alex Hirsch already captured us Canadian Gravity Falls' fans' pain in Lost Legends, so we'll get back to this later. Moving to the inside, the next big difference is of course on the copyright section of the book. The first big difference is again the copyright being 2025 instead of 2017. Below that, it says the book was published by Disney Press, but then on the old book, it says it's an imprint of Disney Book Group, while on the new one, it instead says that it's an imprint of this company. Apparently it's the former name of the Disney Publishing Group, so I have no idea why therefore is being used on this newer book. If you know why, then feel free to comment it below. But other than that, the address for Disney Press has changed. Then below that paragraph is the updated edition of the book. The old book of course says it's the first paperback edition from July 2017, while the new one says it's the second paperback edition from May 2025. After that is of course the different ISBN and FAC numbers, followed by a link to the Disney book site where, funny enough, Don't Color This Book is still not listed as being available again on. One interesting thing of note is that the old book also includes a mention to visit the Disney XD website, which the new book doesn't. That of course is due to the fact Gravity Falls in 2017 was a Disney XD show and has since moved back to Disney Channel. Not to mention also that the Disney XD site no longer exists and redirects to Disney Now instead. And that kind of is ironic too, that they bothered to remove that, for reasons which will make sense later. The last big difference is the giant sustainable forest initiative mention, which on the old book is there too, but is located on the next page in a smaller box. Moving on from the copyright info, what other differences are there? Well, I looked at both books tooth and nail and compared every single page to each other, and there's only really two differences. For one, the newer book's color feels a bit washed out compared to the old one. You probably can best see this on the penultimate page when Dipper is flying out of the book. There is a very visible difference in the intensity of the color. It's a lot brighter in the older copy while more washed out in the new one. But there is one major difference that is far more obvious and honestly makes no sense at all for why it had to be done. If you look at the pages where Dipper is talking in the blue text, it's a different font to the one in the original book. While Mabel and everyone else's font type is the same, Dipper's is now a pointier and honestly less fun looking font if you ask me, compared to the more curved and bolder looking font of the old book. My good friend Trick and GF was the first to notice this and tweet about it. The old font we see Dipper's text in is known as the Joe font and has been used as his font in every single Gravity Falls book and even as the end credits font on episodes. So it's sort of become part of Gravity Falls in a way. It's the font that you don't really think much about, but if you know what you're looking at, you can tell when it's been changed, and that sure as hell is the case here. I honestly have no clue why this font changed. It makes zero sense. And in fact, the font changes also occurred in the republished Happy Summer Ween book. I didn't buy that book, but I was sent in some photos by someone who did, and you can see the differences quite clearly. It just looks wrong. It's Gravity Falls looking enough that a casual fan might not notice it, but as for me, it really sticks out like a sore thumb. I mean, it's again not that big of a deal and maybe they weren't able to use it perhaps for copyright issues or some other dumb legal reasons, but either way, it's just so weird to see, especially given all the other fonts are the same. But looking on the positives for a second, everything else in the coloring book is the same. It's still the book I bought in 2017 and has all the fun images to color in that made this book so good. As a coloring book at least, it still fulfills its most important job, and quite frankly, that's all that matters at the end of the day compared to all the other things here that have been said that are more so nitpicks than anything else. However, there are two final things in the last page of the book that I do need to mention. One is a change that I honestly don't know why they did, and another is something left unchanged that they honestly should have addressed. At the very end of the book, the antagonist in the story of the coloring book, and yes, this book has a story within it, but at the end, this guy who has a name I'm not even going to try to pronounce, presents the Dipper and Mabel a brand new color that they've never seen before. The new color is called, that, and in the old book, which I'm showing you here, it's this super sparkly, silvery, bluish looking blob of color with circular patterns inside that ends up being the same color as one of Mabel's bottles of nail polish, which her and Dipper then leave to paint on Grunkle Stan's toenails. It's pretty cool, but on the new coloring book, it looks like this. It's still got that silvery blue to it, but that sparkle and circular pattern is gone. Again, part of the cool factor of this book has been cut down with that color at the end. It's pretty disappointing, to be honest, but it's not as disappointing as this. On the new coloring book, there's this QR code. This code is also on the old book. Back in 2017, if you scanned this code, it would reveal a Disney XD website page link called Color Coded. Visiting the page lets you listen to something called Seusscast. It was a 4-minute long podcast in which Seuss interviews Grunkle Stan on the roof of the Mystery Shack, also known as Alex Hirsch talking to himself in a recording booth and changing between the Stan and the Seuss voice. Now, even in 2017, the code wasn't 100% perfect, as the website was region locked to the US only. So imagine my disappointment when the page didn't load and it just took me to the Disney XD Canada site. Real smart move, honestly, from Disney for a book that sold, internationally! Thank goodness GF fans acknowledged that there are some of us outside of the US, fortunately, and they backed it up for us to watch. And even if you did live in the US, you had a very limited window of time to use it, as in 2018, the Disney XD website shut down, and the QR code instead redirected you to Disney Now. But okay, that was 2018. Surely with this new publishing of the book, Disney took the time to reactivate this code, re-upload Seusscast on a new page somewhere, and give Gravity Falls fans a nice little surprise, and especially maybe to those new fans who may buy this book for the first time and not know about it. Yeah, the code is still broken, and in fact, now it doesn't even take you to the Disney Now page, it just takes you to a 404 page on the Disney website. It's honestly hilarious to me that they took the time to change Dipper's font in the book, do subtle things like slightly moving the images up a bit on the cover, and even remove the Disney XD website link on the copyright page, yet no one reviewing this book before the release looked at this giant QR code at the end of it, scanned it, and was like, oh hey, why is there a QR code at the end of this book that is about to be released that takes you to a 404 page on the Disney website? Let's deal with this right now. It's classic Disney incompetence. They left a QuickTime player bar on one book, and now they left a broken QR code in another. Now look, I'm not stupid. This is Disney we're talking about. I knew them fixing this QR code and putting Seusscast back up was basically impossible. It was probably a last minute thing anyways by Emmy and Alex that was added into book originally, and no one really has cared about it since. I wasn't expecting a new code to take you to a new Disney page on the website where Seusscast was now up, but I at least at the very minimum thought maybe someone would notice this broken code and if nothing else, remove it. Instead, they just published it again, and I guarantee you that this will confuse fans for years to come who have no idea what it originally was for. Reddit is going to be full of posts like this probably in the future. With all that said, how do I feel about Don't Color This Book being back? I mean, I've spoken rather negatively in this video about it, but that's not what I'm trying to convey. My point with this video was to show you what differences are in this book compared to the old one, not review the book itself. In my opinion, Don't Color This Book is a solid Gravity Falls book. It's got a great story to it, fun illustrations, and honestly speaking, who can hate a good old coloring book? I literally bought 2 copies again like I did in 2017, so that way I can have one to keep in mint condition, while another one to color in. But there is one gripe I have with this book that really makes it hard for me to say to new Gravity Falls fans that they should go out and buy it, and that's the price. This book costs $17.99 Canadian. That's a lot of money for 64 uncolored pages. This is not Journal 3 or Lost Legends or the Book of Bill that give you 100 to 200 plus pages of new lore, new mysteries, and new Gravity Falls content. This is a simple coloring book, which, while fun and supposedly canon, is still just a coloring book. And sure, you may argue that the US price being the same means it's still worth it if you're an American. However, I took this screenshot of Amazon US, and at the time of, Journal 3 and the Book of Bill were both on sale for less than the coloring book cost. And remember, those are far bigger and more lore-important books. This book is being priced to the same level as the flagship GF books, while not having nearly the same amount of content to warrant the price. Quite frankly, I only bought these books again because I both wanted to make this video on the differences, and because genuinely speaking, I wanted to have another copy of the coloring book, but I couldn't buy one due to it being discontinued. And I refused to buy one off of eBay given the price markup there was ridiculous like all other Gravity Falls merch on there is. That was partly why I found out it had been discontinued and made my original 2022 video about it. But if that wasn't the case, I would never have bought this book for the price it is. It's just too much. If you're a longtime Gravity Falls fan who already has this book and are thinking of buying it again, not to color it in but just to see what's different, don't bother. This video has done the job for you. There's nothing new in this book, and in fact, it's not as good quality in my opinion as the original one was. That said, if you're a new Gravity Falls fan who never could own the original book, or even an old fan who wants to color it in and use it as a legit coloring book, I'd suggest waiting for a sale or price drop before buying it, because US dollar or Canadian dollar, it's way too expensive right now for what it's worth. But despite that, it is still a solid book that does what it's for. That all said, the fact we even are here talking about this book being back is a miracle in itself. I had all but said in 2022 that we were probably at the end of the Gravity Falls book era. At the time, the GF box set was being discontinued the following year, and with this book gone as well, I had been worried that up next, more GF books like Time Pirates and eventually maybe even the guidebook or Lost Legends would be axed next. But then, in just the past year thanks to the Book of Bill reviving the fandom, it's given these Gravity Falls books a second chance. It's brought them back from the dead, and allowed them to now be loved by new fans who never could own one in 2017 or the years after when they were available. It gives me hope for the future of Gravity Falls. And again, like I've said a million times before, don't get your hopes up. Nothing is set in stone until Alex Hirsch himself says so. And obviously nothing new in animated form is likely ever happening again to the same degree as the original show. At most, maybe another book is something that could happen given Alex Hirsch himself said he'd want to do that. But I can't lie, I feel more optimistic nowadays for what may happen next with this show than I did 2 years ago. Whatever that may be, if it ever is, we'll just have to wait and see. But despite that, I'm just glad one of my favorite underrated Gravity Falls books has been given a second chance at life, and probably will be available for fans to buy and color in for years to come. So get out there, buy some pencil crayons and get coloring. Or don't, given the book says you shouldn't, but then again, you should because it's a coloring book. Either way, happy coloring. I've been that GFN, and thank you for watching.